Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily update for March 18th, 2021. And I think when you get a sense of what's going on in the world today, you'll agree with me and with the Schiller Institute that the world is in dire need of adopting a new paradigm. As you're watching this update, U.S. officials and Chinese officials are meeting in Anchorage, Alaska. This is a meeting that was prepared for by a discussion in mid-February between President Biden and President Xi of China. But the intent in the last couple of days seems to be from the U.S. side to downplay its importance, saying that this is a one-off meeting. It's not part of an attempt to establish an ongoing dialogue. So they're lowering expectations. The U.S. is saying that they'll confront China with the usual laundry list of complaints, human rights violations against the Uyghurs in Xinjiang province, anti-democratic moves in Hong Kong, threats to Taiwan and other neighbors, and so on. You know, when you talk about anti-democratic moves, do you think the Chinese might bring up the censorship of social media in the United States? I'm sure they probably will. And even before the meeting yesterday, or on Tuesday rather, Secretary of State Blinken, who is leading the U.S. delegation, announced that there are new sanctions against 24 Chinese over changes in election law in Hong Kong. So this is the build-up to the meeting, all the discussion of military deployments, the escalation of the alliance of the Quad powers, the Asian NATO, and so on. But it does represent an opportunity. And I think we should at least watch this and hope that something can come out of it and fight for that. Because no one will gain if there's a war between the United States and China. Of course, at the same time, we see the usual evidence-free charges coming out from the intelligence community against Russia, that Russia interfered in the 2020 election. How? By denigrating Joe Biden, by putting out negative reports on Joe Biden. Well, it said the intelligence community has high confidence in this, which, as former NSA technical director Bill Binney has said, that means they have no evidence. Now, this is the same lack of evidence that was there before Russiagate, the charges that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. And it prompted a comment from Biden when he was asked if he believes that Putin is a killer. He said, yes, he does. And he said he will pay a price. Well, what would he say of his former boss, Barack Obama, who met every Tuesday to plan out murders in Southwest Asia with the bloodthirsty John Brennan, the then director of the CIA? So this question of hypocrisy, as opposed to an opening for dialogue, this is really the question of intent. And as we look at this, we also see coming from Britain, the British Defense Review, which defines Russia as an acute threat. And what do they propose? A major increase in development of new nuclear weapons after 20 years of disarmament. So again, a further destabilization, even as the British are talking about sending naval vessels into the Indo-Pacific region to back up American and Allied forces there to contain China. Now, we also have other hot spots that have to be addressed. There's an escalation of the fighting in Yemen at a point in which almost 20 million people there are food insecure and millions face starvation. This is an urgent situation which must be addressed immediately. And this requires action from the United States, not just a vague promise to stop arming Saudi Arabia, but actually intervening to stop the damn war. Now, this is part of a global problem of refugees and migration. The latest report from the UN shows that there are millions in motion, as many as 80 million people who are refugees, estimates of 830 million or more people who are classed as food insecure, which means heading towards starvation. Now, the World Food Organization has put out a report saying that more than 200 million people face starvation in the coming months. And so this is an area that must be addressed urgently by the United States and our transatlantic allies. Gear up our food production, use our logistics not to send troops and weapons, but to send food. This is the ultimate goodwill gesture that would show that the United States is truly committed to a good neighbor policy. Now, the broader solution, though, is the land bridge proposal that Lyndon LaRouche made that then became the basis of China's Belt and Road Initiative. When LaRouche first proposed this, what he talked about was high-speed rail connections across all continents, including going through the Bering Strait to link Russia and the United States and then come all the way down to the tip of South America. The idea of high-speed transport is not just to move goods faster, but to develop corridors of development on which new cities will be built, as they are doing in China. Along these corridors, you have water management to deal with problems of drought and flooding, power systems to bring electricity to the whole world, and healthcare systems, which are absolutely essential given that the COVID pandemic is probably not the last pandemic we're going to see. Now, in initiating the Belt and Road Initiative, instead of praising China for their work in lifting over 800 million of their own people out of poverty, and now extending that to South Asia and into Africa, they're accused of destabilizing countries, threatening them with their own autocratic system, putting them in debt, and so on. The latest is an attack on China for infrastructure projects in the poor regions of the Caribbean. And this is over the Chinese coming in with vaccines and transportation projects. Now, it's so extreme, this rhetoric, that even the cynical Bill Maher was able to recognize and discuss the difference between the extraordinary improvements and developments of infrastructure in China and the collapsing American cities and infrastructure in the United States. The ironic contrast between China on its way up and the US on the way down is not going to be solved by going to war, but by working together, as we saw initially with President Trump's meetings with President Xi of China up until 2019. So the prospects for this are there. The Chinese are going to respond to threats against them by coming back with their own challenges. But instead, why not work together? Why not propose the peaceful cooperation of the great powers? Instead, what we're seeing is a headlong rush to a global banker's dictatorship called the Great Reset, which will fund a new green financial bubble, which will further dismantle the power systems and industrial production and agricultural production, which is needed to bring the world back from the brink of starvation, disease, and war. So toward this end, the Schiller Institute is going to be holding a conference this weekend, an online conference that you can register for at theschillerinstitute.com. It will be 2 days on Saturday the 20th and Sunday the 21st, 2 panels each day that will take up questions of culture, of science, of strategic cooperation and development, and developing a worldwide health system. This is the way we have to move in the world. And the American people are at a point where either you submit to the idea that all is lost, that the nation has failed and collapsing, or you participate as a mobilized force to reinvigorate our Republican Constitution and to act in the interests of all Americans, and by doing so, as a sovereign nation, becoming a partner and a friend to all other countries of the world. That's what LaRouche's idea is about. And so that's what the conference will be. Again, it's the 20th and 21st of March on Saturday, and it's free. Register online. Go to theschillerinstitute.com. Now, I'm not going to be doing an update tomorrow because I and my colleagues are preparing for this conference, but I will post by tomorrow my latest article on the danger of war in the Indo-Pacific region coming from the war hawks, who so far in the Biden administration sound eerily familiar to those who watched the insane ravings of war hawk Mike Pompeo, especially in the last year of the Trump administration. So come to our conference, and I'll see you again next week.